Welcome to our program about animals of Southwest Saskatchewan and climate change. I'd like to thank City of Swift Current and SaskCulture Sask Lotteries for supporting programs like this. In Saskatchewan, there are 67 fish species, 414 bird species, and 91 mammal species, as well as amphibians and reptiles. Each species is part of an ecosystem. Ecosystems are made up of many complex interactions that ultimately determine our wildlife populations. Ecosystems can be different on the side of a hill and at the top of the same hill. The Southwest environment is mixed grass prairie. A mixed grass prairie has grasses of many different heights. Mixed grass prairies are the transition between eastern tallgrass prairies, where more rainfall means that taller grasses can grow, and western shortgrass prairies, where the dry environment favors shorter grasses. Mixed grass prairie is richer in ecological diversity than either the tall or shortgrass prairie. As you can see here, we are located in the mixed grassland region. One of the most iconic animals of the mixed grass prairie region is the bison. The bison is the largest land mammal in North America. In 1800, there were 30 to 60 million bison in North America. By 1889, there were only 541 left in the U.S. It took less than 90 years for us to wipe out a species that had thrived here for 10,000 years. Bison are herd animals, staying together as much for company as for protection. They talk by staring, snorting, grunting, and bellowing. All of these are threatening. And by grinding their teeth to make very high-pitched sounds that humans cannot hear. They also switch their tails as a form of communication. Bison do not have good eyesight, but their superb hearing makes up for that. They are also great swimmers. Bison were keystone animals of the shortgrass region. Many of the other animals relied on their grazing to create a suitable environment for them. Another unique mammal is the pronghorn antelope. The pronghorn is the second fastest animal in the world. Only the cheetah can run faster, but the pronghorn can sustain its speed for much longer. Tens of thousands of years ago, there were many more large predators on the western plains, including a much larger version of the cheetah. To survive, the pronghorn had a need for speed. Its adaptations include huge eyes with excellent distance vision and great peripheral vision to allow the pronghorn to detect predators and changes in the terrain from a distance. They have large hearts, twice the size of goats, as well as a large windpipe and more blood providing the oxygen that is needed to run fast and far. Pronghorns have very slender, long legs with strong but lightweight bones and hollow hairs to reduce weight and drag. They have special heat exchangers to cool blood going to the brain. These adaptations make the pronghorn perfectly suited for the open prairie, but open prairie is becoming rare. The pronghorn's biggest difficulty with human development is fencing. The very adaptations that make them ideal for the prairies mean that they have problems jumping fences. Pronghorns will try to crawl underneath the fences, and on the rare occasion that they jump one, they will try to land on their hind legs. Many pronghorns die tangled in fencing or because fences prevent them from reaching their winter feeding ranges. Some ranches are now installing special fences that are high enough for pronghorns to crawl under. This is a good step in assisting this unique beast in its prairie habitat. The American badger is a member of the weasel family. Badgers hunt by digging their prey out of their burrows. They are nomadic and can have several dens within their territory. They are fierce when confronted or threatened. As well as being fast on the ground, Badgers are excellent swimmers. Skunks find plenty to eat in the way of insects, worms, plants, and small rodents in the field. These omnivores will also eat eggs and reptiles and have been known to attack the hives of honeybees. Skunks will usually stamp if people come too close, but if stamping doesn't work, they will spray. Hares and cottontails are both common in this area. They are shy, crepuscular creatures, meaning they search for food primarily at dawn or dusk. They might not be seen even when present because of their good camouflage and their tendency to freeze ears down when there are perceived threats. Both are plant eaters with an efficient eating strategy. They eat plants and then eat their defecated plant material so it is more thoroughly digested. Cottontails burrow, but hares live above ground. The Richardson ground squirrel is what people typically call a gopher. These rodents eat seeds, grains, grasses, and insects. They will also consume the corpses of other ground squirrels that have been killed on the road. This leads to more being hit by cars. The pocket gopher is the real gopher. Pocket gophers, often confused with moles, are burrowing rodents that feed on the roots of vegetation. Their lips close behind their chisel-like teeth, allowing them to cut roots or dig burrows without getting soil in their mouth. They cause so many problems by chewing underground wires that those wires are now covered with steel. Deer mice have large ears and are more commonly found in rural areas. They are known to carry hantavirus, which is transmitted when urine or feces are disturbed. Voles thrive on small plants, but like shrews, they will eat dead animals, and like mice and rats, they can live on almost any nut or fruit. Voles target plants more than most other small animals. They eat root systems and burrow under plants and eat away until the plant is dead. Bulbs are another favorite target. Like other burrowing rodents, they also play beneficial roles, including dispersing nutrients throughout the upper soil layers. The American mink is a semi-aquatic carnivore that feeds on rodents, fish, crustaceans, frogs, and birds. Weasels usually have red or brown upper coats and white bellies. Some molt to a white coat in winter. Their long, slender bodies enable them to follow their prey into burrows. The moose is the largest land animal in the northern hemisphere. Its large hooves act like snowshoes to keep it from sinking in soft snow, mud, or marshy ground. The word moose comes from the Algonquian word meaning twig eater. Moose like to browse on higher branches so they do not have to lower their large head. But in summer, they are happy in the water, eating aquatic plants. They are agile both on land and in the water. Moose have become quite common in our region. As long as they can follow water, they are fine. Mule deer are the most common large mammals in this region. They are browsers, preferring twigs and berries to grass. Their antler growth is regulated by changes in the length of the day. This way, the antlers are ready for mating season. Antlers are used for social bonding among young males. Territorial authority is generally determined by threat postures and flailing of hooves. Deer use scent glands to communicate. One scent signals alarm, one allows mutual recognition, and one leaves a scent trail. The American beaver is the largest rodent in North America. The beaver has a large, flat, paddle-shaped tail and large webbed hind feet which suit its semi-aquatic lifestyle. The unwebbed front paws have claws and are used for digging and to fold individual leaves into their mouth. The nostrils and ears are sealed while submerged. Their lips can be closed behind their front teeth so they can continue to gnaw underwater. Besides providing a safe home for the beaver, their dammed ponds also provide habitat for waterfowl, fish, and other aquatic animals. The dams help reduce erosion and can help reduce flooding. Blackfoot Nation would not trap beavers because they saw their dams as a system of water conservation during times of drought. The muskrat is a medium-sized semi-aquatic rodent. Long scaled tails help them swim. Muskrats spend most of their time in the water and can swim underwater for 12 to 17 minutes. They have important effects on the ecology of wetlands. The porcupine feeds on the inner bark of trees in winter. When plants leaf out, it will eat herbs and shrubs. Porcupines love water lilies and arrowhead. Their air-filled quills allow them to swim. Porcupines cannot shoot their quills at predators as once thought, but the quills do detach easily when touched. The red fox is a solitary hunter, coming together with other foxes only during mating season. It uses a den only for breeding, sleeping in the open the rest of the time, and curling its bushy tail over its nose to keep warm. Not all red foxes are red. Some are brown, black, or silver, even within the same litter. There are 7 kinds of snakes in the southwest part of the province. Because of the cold climate, they overwinter underground below the frost line. They are the plains garter snake, seen here, the western terrestrial garter snake, the common garter snake, the western hog-nosed snake, the bull snake, the yellow-bellied racer, and the western prairie rattlesnake. Only the rattlesnake is venomous. They bite humans when stepped on, cornered, handled, harassed, or attacked. Rattlesnake bites can be fatal. Do not hike alone in rattlesnake territory. The snowy owl breeds on the tundra and lives in this region during the winter. Males are white. Females are white with brown bars to better blend into the tundra, where they lay their eggs on the ground. Unlike other owls, they are diurnal, meaning that they feed during the day. Snowy owls do not hoot, they squawk. Great horned owls are very common around here, even within the city. They are silent nocturnal flyers. They feed primarily on raccoons, rabbits, squirrels, and birds. Great horned owls are the only known creatures to prey upon skunks because they do not have a great sense of smell. Hawks have become more common on the prairie since people began planting trees that provide a roost for them. They are daytime predators that prey on small rodents and animals. Female hawks are considerably larger than the males. Crows are one of the most intelligent birds. They are known to pass information from generation to generation. With strong feet and beaks, crows are prepared to eat whatever is available. Crows are common and adaptable, and very susceptible to West Nile virus. Ring-necked pheasants are not native to the Southwest. They were introduced by hunters. These large and beautifully colored birds can be sometimes seen in the floodplain along the creek. There are 160 species of butterflies in Saskatchewan. Common butterflies you might see include the yellow sulphur, the cabbage white, the western fritillary, and the red admiral. There are occasional monarch butterflies here, but more often you will see the viceroy, which mimics the coloration of monarchs. The way you can tell them apart is that viceroys have a horizontal stripe on their lower wings. The cabbage butterfly is one of the most common in this region. Its caterpillars are pests of crops in the mustard family. The cabbage butterfly was accidentally introduced in North America in the mid-1800s. Red admiral butterflies migrate north to this region in late spring. This butter may claim a territory and defend it against intruders. There are many species of moths here, and an inordinate number of them are brown. Most moths are active at night and have larvae that are destructive to plants. This particular moth is the tent caterpillar moth. There are many sparrows in this region, including the chipping sparrow, the white-crowned sparrow, the white-throated sparrow, and the savanna sparrow. Sparrows have conical beaks that aid in the removal of husks from the seeds they eat. In summer, they also consume a lot of insects. Though they are primarily seed eaters, they will eat most anything that is available. They are social birds, so they are usually found in flocks. Sparrows are one of the few perching birds that dust bathe. Contrary to popular belief, when robins tilt their heads, they are not listening for worms. They are positioning their eyes to look up for predators or down for food. Red-winged blackbirds nest in the reeds along the creek. Males are black with brilliant right and yellow shoulders, but females are striped brown and tan in color, which provides camouflage among the reeds. The mallard duck is fairly large for a dabbling duck. A dabbler is one that dips its head underwater to feed, rather than diving. The mallard is the ancestor of most domestic ducks. Females lay almost half their body weight, so they require well-concealed nests for resting and feeding the young. The yellow-headed blackbird also nests in the reeds. The female is tan-colored. Males are very territorial during the mating and nesting period. Common grackles are large blackbirds. They eat many crops, especially corn, and will eat almost anything else, including garbage. After the young are fledged, they often congregate, which makes for quite a noisy spectacle. Canada geese can be quite confrontational if people get too close. Urban populations have been growing in recent years to the point that they are often considered pests. Black-billed magpies are in the crow family. They are one of only 4 North American songbirds whose tail makes up half of the body length. Magpies perform anting, where they rub the insects into their feathers. This might act as an insecticide or fungicide and may supplement their preening oils. The American goldfinch is common in the area during summer. It is a grain eater that prefers open countries. American goldfinches nest in late summer. Smooth-feathered cedar waxwings are social birds that are usually seen in flocks. These berry eaters will swoop down and clear a tree of berries. Mountain ash trees are a favorite. They also fly over water looking for insects. In winter, Bohemian waxwings populate our region. This is a picture of a Bohemian waxwing. The northern flicker is a member of the woodpecker family. They are often seen on the ground because their main source of food is ants and beetles. Woodpeckers drum to communicate and defend territory, which is why they will drum on metal objects. Dark-eyed juncos are one of the first signs of spring, arriving just as the weather begins to break in March, although some stay the winter. They are in the sparrow family and are habitually on the ground looking for seeds. The greater sage grouse is Saskatchewan's largest upland bird. They are protected, and there has not been a hunting season for sage grouse since the 1930s. There are many species of beetles in the Southwest. You are most likely to see darkling beetles or ground beetles. There are several species of mosquitoes here. The species most likely to carry West Nile virus usually appears in August. Only female mosquitoes need a blood meal to have the protein needed to produce eggs. The males drink nectar. People commonly call yellow jackets wasps. Most wasps are solitary and are not aggressive. Yellow jackets are social predatory wasps that can be very aggressive when their nests are disturbed. Bumblebees are social insects that live in small colonies. They are capable of stinging repeatedly, but rarely do so. They feed on nectar and gather pollen to feed their young. There are many species of flies here. We often see the blowfly, shiny metallic blue or green, or the housefly. Because of their habit of walking on garbage or carrion before they walk on your sandwich, flies carry several germs and viruses. Make sure you cover your food if you plan to leave it for a while. Dragonflies and damselflies will be attracted to the mosquito population. Both spend their youth as aquatic larvae. When they reach adulthood, they crack open their exoskeleton and walk out. There is a new shell and wings beneath. There are 40 species of grasshoppers in Saskatchewan. Only 4 of those are considered serious pests on crops. These pests are the migratory grasshopper, which is one of the most destructive. It eats cereals, tomatoes, celery, onions, and carrots. The clear-winged grasshopper is a severe pest of cereal grains, and they can eat a crop to the ground. Together with the migratory grasshopper, they can wipe out range and hay. The two-striped grasshopper is the first noted in large numbers here in the 1930s. These hoppers can eat crops down to the bare ground. And the Packard's grasshopper readily eats alfalfa, cereals, and pasture. The Carolina grasshopper, with yellow stripes on its wings, appears in late summer and is not a destructive grasshopper. You are sure to see ants if you spend any time looking down. Red pavement ants and black ants, called field ants, are common. Ants are very important because they loosen and aerate the ground. It is quite possible that you might come across ticks, especially if you walk anywhere where the grass is long. While we do not have deer ticks, the kind that spread Lyme disease, there are other illnesses that are tick-borne. If you walk in long grass, tuck your pants into your socks, use an insect repellent, and do a tick check when you get home. The raccoon is an alien species. The word alien means something that does not come from here. The raccoon is an alien species because it did not originate on the prairies. It followed the settlers west, attracted to the garbages and eggs available on homestead. Saskatchewan has a variety of reptiles and amphibians, including 2 species of turtles, 1 species of lizard, 9 species of snakes, 1 species of salamander, and 6 species of frogs. Each of these species represents an important stepping stone in a unique food web, either by acting as predator or as prey. Reptiles and amphibians act as biological controls for vectors of human diseases, such as mosquitoes and ticks. They also serve as critical food resources for native and migrating bird populations throughout the province. Most of the populations of these species are already at risk due to factors such as pollution and habitat destruction. The greater shorthorned lizard, shown here, that lives in Grasslands National Park, has a unique method of deterring predators. It squirts blood out of its eyes. Ecosystems consist of a variety of complex interactions that ultimately determine our wildlife populations. The integrity of ecosystems are sometimes threatened and altered by habitat loss, pollution, overexploitation, disease, and conflict between humans and wildlife. Species at risk are defined and managed by several categories. Vulnerable species are species of special concern because of low or declining numbers, but they are not endangered or threatened. One example shown here is the prairie dog. Threatened species are likely to become endangered if the factors leading to their endangerment are not reversed. The ferruginous hawk is an example. Endangered species are threatened with imminent extirpation or extinction. The burrowing owl is in this category. The word extirpated means the species is no longer found in Saskatchewan. The greater prairie chicken, shown here, has populations in the US, but none exist in Canada anymore. Extinct species are species that no longer exist. There are no passenger pigeons anymore due to overhunting. Endangered species in Saskatchewan include the swift fox, the burrowing owl, the greater sage grouse, the Eskimo curlew, the piping plover and mountain plover, the sage thrasher, the whooping crane, and the lake sturgeon. There are also 3 endangered plant species. There are 4 species that are extirpated. They are the prairie grizzly, the prairie wolf, the black-footed ferret, and the greater prairie chicken. The black-footed ferret was the most endangered mammal in North America, with only 16 in captivity. They've been breeding them and releasing them in areas where there are prairie dogs because they only eat prairie dogs. Most recently, they have cloned a black-footed ferret from a long-frozen specimen. This will help to mitigate the problem of inbreeding. 9 animal species are threatened, including the plains bison, woodland caribou, peregrine falcon, loggerhead shrike, Sprague's pipit, eastern yellow-bellied racer, short-jaw cisco, the Mormon meadowlark shown here, and Dakota skipper, as well as 6 threatened plants. 15 species are vulnerable, including the prairie dog, Ord's kangaroo rat, shown here, wolverine, long-billed curlew, ferruginous hawk, short-eared owl, yellow rail, red-headed woodpecker, greater short-horned lizard, Great Plains toad, northern leopard frog, buffalo bigmouth, chestnut lamprey, and monarch butterfly, along with 8 plants. Reptiles and amphibians are at risk due to pollution and habitat destruction. Desertification of wetland habitats because of changing precipitation patterns will decrease the amount of suitable breeding habitat, decreasing populations of amphibians and water-dependent reptiles. The year 2020 tied as the warmest year on record. The hottest decade was last decade. The warmest 7 years were the last 7 years. If you are younger than 32, you have never experienced a month in which the temperature was colder than the 20th century average. Climate change is and will continue to affect animal populations in Saskatchewan. The prairies face an increase in the possibility that droughts will be longer and more frequent. Longer, hotter growing seasons will increase the potential for pests and invasive species. Higher summer temperatures could increase the massive algae blooms in prairie lakes. A northward shift of the boundary where grassland meets parkland or forest is expected to occur. In some regions, warmer temperatures may result in more precipitation falling as rain in the winter and spring, leading to less snowpack accumulation and increased stream flow. Other regions could experience higher snowfalls. On average, lower stream flow is likely to occur in the summer due to higher temperatures and lower precipitation. However, the future will likely also experience greater variability in stream flow due to large singular rainfall events that overwhelm local drainage, leading to more flash flood-like conditions. Summer storms are likely to be more intense and numerous as temperatures increase, leading to more erosion, stream sedimentation, and the potential for flash flooding. The Canadian prairies are disappearing faster than the Amazon rainforest and the Great Barrier Reef. Nature Conservancy Canada says more than 70% of Canada's prairie grasslands have been converted for other uses such as agriculture and industry, compared to just 20% of the Amazon. The complex plant and soil communities in old-growth prairie are among the most difficult natural habitats to restore. Once prairie is plowed, whether seeded to tame hay or left to revegetate, the land quickly becomes colonized by a few dominant European grasses in a simplified ecosystem unsuitable for all but the most adaptive prairie wildlife species. Invasive plants are increasing, escalating the possibility of outcompeting native communities. Evidence of increasing invasive populations is present in the agricultural section of Western Canada, where 37% of the dominant 30 species of insect herbivores are invasive to the region. Prairies are a source of water for many communities, including Regina and Moose Jaw. The grasslands also act as a natural sponge. When there's lots of water in the spring, these grasslands hold onto it, which can help prevent flooding, and then slowly release it in the summer when we need it most. 2 to 3% of the remaining grasslands are disappearing every year. At this rate, they could be gone in 50 years. According to Environment and Climate Change Canada, the country is warming on average about double the global rate. The effects of climate change are already being felt on the ground in the prairies. They have already heard from farmers complaining of the challenging weather. Saskatchewan has areas like the Cypress Hills where unique geography allows for rare and distinctive organisms to thrive. These habitats and their species will be facing a great deal of stress as human-driven climate change continues to raise temperatures both worldwide and in Saskatchewan. These increases in temperature will cause changes in wind patterns, an increase in rare weather events, a decrease in water availability, and can cause a northern shift in the ecozone boundaries. Grasslands National Park preserves rare grass communities such as mixed grass prairie and short grass prairie, as well as many unique and endemic species such as the black-tailed prairie dog that depend on these grasses for ecological community preservation. The reason for the establishment of the park was that over 80% of all previous mixed grass prairie and short grass prairie has been lost in Saskatchewan due to current agricultural practices, and preservation of these species is vital to ecosystem health and biodiversity. Saskatchewan's prairie ecozone should expect an extremely arid future, similar to conditions seen after the Holocene period. The prairies will be subjected to intense desertification and erosion because periods of drought may last 10 or more consecutive years. The region has both permanent and semi-permanent wetlands, which may experience changes in water depth, areal extent, and length of wet and dry cycles. These changes will not only have implications for vegetation surrounding the wetlands, but for waterfowl and other organisms inhabiting them as well. Saskatchewan wetlands are very dynamic ecosystems, including a wide variety of shorebirds, amphibians, reptiles, mammals, invertebrates, and aquatic and terrestrial plants. Saskatchewan also provides essential habitat for millions of migrating and nesting waterfowl each year. Wetlands also provide the people of Saskatchewan with services like water quality improvement, flood control, nutrient cycling, and carbon sequestration. With the doubling of carbon dioxide, the prairie pothole duck population would be cut in half by the year 2060 due to the loss of wetland habitat. And it is hard to predict how Saskatchewan citizens will decide to share their water with vulnerable wetland ecosystems. Some possibilities during the decades to come include food shortages. Warming temperatures could have an impact on what types of products are readily available at grocery stores in the next several years. Increased frequency of wildfires may result in increases in respiratory problems. Warmer temperatures may lead to heat-related illnesses and enhance the production of secondary pollutants, including ground-level ozone. Climate-sensitive diseases such as Lyme and West Nile are moving northward and are already present in the prairies. They are expected to continue to expand their range. Water management in the prairies will become increasingly important. Small communities largely dependent on well water or smaller reservoirs are at greater risk as drought intensifies or increases in frequency. These issues will disproportionately affect children, the elderly, Indigenous peoples, the poor, the homeless, and people with chronic health conditions. You can probably adapt to moderate climate change, but we're not facing moderate climate change. We are facing extreme and devastating climate change. So while it's prudent to make adaptation plans, it's much more critical to really reduce emissions fast. Saskatchewan has one of the highest per capita emission rates in the world. Saskatchewan makes up 10.8% of Canada's emissions total, despite having just over 3% of the country's population. Canadians used 110 billion liters of refined oil products in 2018. The biggest problem with reducing fossil fuels is that we are very reliant on them, and not just to fuel vehicles and heat our homes. Look around you. How many things can you see that are made from plastic or have parts that are plastic? We use plastics for so many things: clothing, nail polish, basketballs, life jackets, guitar strings, eyeglasses and contacts, and shaving cream, as well as heart valves, anesthetics, and artificial limbs. It might seem ideal to stop mining coal because it is one of the greatest polluters. However, 47% of the electricity in Saskatchewan is produced by burning coal. And metallurgical coal is needed to make steel that is needed for building wind turbines, solar farms, nuclear reactors, geothermal systems, and to farm biofuels. Saskatchewan also relies heavily on natural gas, which is the least damaging of the fossil fuels. But pipelines must be built to transport natural gas, and many people want to move towards greener forms of energy. In this region, solar and wind energy seem to be viable options because we have more sunshine than most parts of the country and many windy days. We use hydroelectric power at the Gardner Dam on Lake Diefenbaker, but we would need to look for smaller hydro locations in the north. Building hydroelectric plants can have a great impact on surrounding ecosystems. Biofuel takes arable land to grow its products. That takes away land that could be used to grow food. Large geothermal plants need a source of heat, like geysers in the United States. Transporting that energy to cities is expensive. Saskatchewan wants to build small nuclear reactors in the north. You can see the small one on the left here, close to where uranium is mined, because transporting uranium is dangerous. But when people think of nuclear power, they think of Chernobyl and Fukushima Prefecture in Japan. Also, recently, uranium companies have been surveying on Indigenous land without permission. Any energy solutions must respect the needs of our First Nations. It seems that no one type of energy has all the answers. The best thing to do is to use a mix of all of these ways to generate energy. But plans need to be implemented faster and on a greater scale because we are already too late to stop some of the damage. So what can we do? We need to breed crops or be prepared to switch to crops that are more heat resistant or more drought tolerant, and we need to switch our soil moisture management practices for the purpose of conserving water. We can also help by purchasing beef and bison meat that comes from native grassland. We need to encourage governments to work with farmers and ranchers to stop the plowdown and retain and grant full protection to all publicly owned grasslands. The Saskatchewan Environmental Society wants the provincial government to extend protected areas into Saskatchewan, to do more to protect and restore the province's declining wetlands, and significantly reduce greenhouse gas emissions. We need to look at the difference between wants and needs. All living things need air, water, food, shelter, and space. Some of those things might become scarce if we do not begin to deal with climate change. We need air. Trying to aim for a carbon-neutral society will help to keep the air clean. Protecting forests, grasslands, and other biomes will also keep our air clean. Finding strategies to make organic farming more productive would reduce the pesticides in the air that we breathe. Water is affected by pesticides, industrial waste, and litter. Water may become scarce if we experience extended droughts. Protection of our water is vital. Food production depends upon water. The food supply chain and industries that produce packaged food are not carbon neutral. Reliance on local food helps. It is expensive though, so not always a viable solution for lower income families. Perhaps greater demand would lower the cost. Shopping the perimeter of the store, meat, dairy, eggs, and produce, ensures that most of your food is not factory produced. But watch out for unnecessary imports. We produce apples in Canada, so why are most available apples from the United States or New Zealand? The waste of fuel and emissions are astronomical. You can speak to your local grocer about this, or simply stop buying foreign apples. If enough people do so, perhaps we can reverse this trend. Remember that we can also buy Canadian potatoes, rutabagas, onions, carrots, beets, and other root vegetables even in the winter months. Growing your own produce is a great summer option. Even balcony gardens can provide tomatoes, lettuce, strawberries, herbs, and so on. Many people have returned to the practice of freezing and canning their summer produce to use during winter. Also, eating more vegetarian meals will reduce your carbon footprint. Shelter is critical, especially in our northern country. People with the means to do so can switch to greener power sources, but other owners can reduce the use of heating and air conditioning with programmable thermostats, and apartment dwellers can do their part by reducing their reliance on electricity. We can reduce the use of phantom power by unplugging video games when not in use, electronics when they are fully charged, and televisions if no one is recording shows. Any appliance or electronic device that has a red light or a clock is always on, even when it's off. We have come to believe that bigger is better, especially when it comes to bathrooms. 4 bathrooms was practically unheard of in older homes. Downsizing your home would save energy. Space for wildlife implies the needed territory to feed and breed. Humans have taken control of space in this world, but space in homes and green space to roam is at a premium in large cities. In Swift Current, we are fortunate that the city has invested considerable time and money on parks and the Chinook Walkway, so everyone can be outside. Urban dwellers and rural people alike must be conscious of the need to preserve wild spaces as well. These areas are carbon sinks as well as habitat for flora and fauna. Our lifestyle has made transportation a need, but there is a difference between needs and wants. Who actually needs trucks or SUVs? Farmers, rural people, and people who regularly haul large things need trucks. More people could use smaller, more gas-efficient vehicles, hybrids, and electric cars. These can be expensive, but demand will likely make them not only more affordable, but required in some regions of the country. Urban people could rideshare or take public transit. Remember, the more people use our public transit, the bigger and more reliable it will come. Our province has lost bus and train services between communities. Perhaps a greener future will bring these back. We also need clothing, but our society has begun to lean towards cheaply made, throwaway clothing. Long lost is the practice of darning a sock to extend its use. Many people have adopted the practice of shopping for recreation, and our closets are overflowing. Again, wants versus needs. Increasing number of people have begun to shop at thrift stores and second-hand consignment stores. Another option is to buy limited numbers of high-quality Canadian-made clothing that are classic cuts. These can be worn for many years. We spend a lot of money on wants. Pick a room or even a drawer in your home and see what objects are wants rather than needs. If we curtail spending on wants, we can reduce emissions. And if you have too many things, donate them. Finally, use your voice. Demand faster action on climate change, even if it increases your taxes. You can revisit wants versus needs to free up money for increased taxes. Scientists feel considerable urgency to protect valuable ecosystems. It is also important to slow climate change for young people and future generations who will be the ones left to deal with a damaged world.